Welcome to the latest edition of Until Saturday, the Sunday Sound Off edition. I'm Ari Wasserman, joined by Dave Ubben, per usual. Dave, how are we doing today?
We're doing good. It was a late night, Ari. Thanks to Colorado, and in part thanks to the prison yard team at Colorado State. But quite a ball game. But we're recovering.
And another wonderful guest who I get the pleasure of podcasting with at least once a week, but now it's going to be two this week. Grace Rayner, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Ari. I know I get to double up with you this week. I'm excited.
Grace, I don't think we've ever been on a podcast together. I don't
think we have either. Grace
is one of the greats on our staff, a dear friend. But I'm excited to podcast with you for the first time. This is quite a momentous occasion. I'm glad the listeners can be here with it. So.
I'm excited as well.
For some reason, you're listening to this podcast and you're not familiar with Grace's trajectory. She covered Clemson for a lot of years, and recently has now transitioned into a national recruiting, reporter personality. And those footsteps that I constantly hear behind me are her coming from my job. So it's good to have you on the show. And the closer I can keep you to me, the more confident I feel that I won't get fired. But it's really good to have you on, Grace. Love having you here. This is quickly becoming, if not already is, my favorite show of the week because we get to hear your voices. And, for Dave and me and Grace and everybody else who's on this feed, I can't tell you guys how much we appreciate your participation, your continued support of the show, you being here live to interact as we do it. And of course, submitting your voicemails. It's gold. We love hearing it. And of course, being able to broadcast your voices onto the feed and listen to what you have to say makes you more a part of the show than, we could have ever hoped for. And it's great to have you here. So again, thanks so much. Be sure to follow this podcast on Apple or wherever you listen to your podcast. If you drop us a 5-star review and leave a question, we will answer it on the show. Subscribe to the Until Saturday on YouTube. If you're listening to this on podcast form, the link to the YouTube page is in the show's description. If you're listening to this live on YouTube, you can find it on all the major streaming platforms. We will be live on Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday every week during the football season to give you coverage. Thursday's the pick show, Saturday's the live reaction show after the games, and Sunday, which you're watching right now, is a Sunday Sound Off show. Please leave the voicemails or text the Until Saturday phone line at 316-462-9852. That's 316-462-9852. You can call or text that number. We will definitely sway towards the calls because we want your voices to be a part of the show. And of course, last but not least, we also have a newsletter at The Athletic called Until Saturday. Really great name. Certainly is meant to match the actual show. And the links to the newsletter can be found in the show's description, where you can get your daily fill of podcasts into your email box. And you don't have to be subscribed to The Athletic to receive that. This week, Jana Bardall wrote an interesting discussion about Alabama that kind of gets you hooked into what happened over the weekend. And I think it's the perfect segue to the first segment of this show, which is a day later. We're recording this in the evening, and we're 24 hours after that monstrosity happened in Tampa. What are our thoughts on Alabama? I've got a big column coming on Monday about Nick Saban and the whole quarterback situation there. But what are your guys' thoughts now that you've had some time to let it breathe?
Grace, I'll let you go. We yelled about Alabama last night.
I think if I'm an Alabama fan, I'm concerned, right? I mean, you have no clarity really going into week 4, going into the SEC opener against Ole Miss. And I know we'll talk about that in a little bit, whether or not Alabama should be 6.5 points too much. I think that's what they opened at. But yeah, I mean, it's just so bizarre to see Alabama struggle in this way and just have no answers at the quarterback situation. And I don't know, I don't know whose fault it is, but as a viewer, I think it's just really puzzling to watch.
I think in general, Georgia is in part to blame. They're taking a lot of good players, including in the portal.
We're gonna fight.
Grabbing receivers. It's a confluence. It's a confluence of all these things. But at the end of the day, before the season, we mentioned, hey, Alabama, if they're going to be something different than what I thought, because I've been driving the Alabama's going to go 9-3 bus all off season, is that some guys were going to pop. You're going to see some guys maybe you didn't know about preseason because Alabama has recruited so well and has so much talent that guys were going to pop. And Ari, I've seen a very little popping through 3 games. I haven't seen a single guy that we didn't know about coming into the season that made you sit up and go, oh, okay, like this kind of changes things, especially on offense. And that's a huge issue. Again, we hit on it last night. You have an offensive line that's losing one-on-ones and can't communicate. You have an insane situation at quarterback that's your own doing, and Ari will write about that as well. It's a recruiting issue. You have receivers who are average and can't get open and don't help your offensive line or your quarterback situation. And you're above average at running back. Jace McClellan is good and not really, I would say, an impact player. And that is a recipe for, at least you would think, more than 17 points against USF. But we're going to have to see a different version of Bama, especially on the lines of scrimmage, if they're not going to get popped at Ole Miss.
This is the most talented team in the history of recruiting rankings. It has a 90% blue chip ratio. And the average ranking of a player on Alabama's 85-man roster is a top 100 player. Think about that.
That is
That's
crazy.
the average ranking of a player on that team. And we were watching a game on Saturday, which thankfully had some weird camera angles because of a lightning storm. I don't know if I could have handled seeing that up close.
There's all 22, and then there's that camera angle, which was hard to watch.
It was the only thing that kept me alive, because if I was seeing what was going on that field up close, I don't know if I would have been able to survive it. And somehow, throughout the course of assembling this super roster, yes, there are offensive line concerns, and yes, they don't have Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith or somebody in the receiving corps, which certainly would help ease the pressure of that. But somehow we have arrived at a place where they have 5 scholarship quarterbacks on the team, and none of them can play right now. And that, to me, is very interesting to me. Next year, Alabama has Julian Sand coming in. I watched him at the Elite 11 in June or July this past year, and I thought he was incredible. He won the competition. He's going to be great.
Ari, though,
but if you think about...
The answer for Alabama is portal combat. It's not Julian Sand. I think, do we agree on this?
I don't know what the answer is going to be. All I know is that they have 2 different options to try to figure it out. And I don't know how this is possible for Alabama to have the Heisman Trophy winners that it just got done having, the Tuas, the Bryce Youngs, guys who have won national championships, guys who have won Heismans, and to have 5 players at the quarterback position on your roster, all of whom were top 160 players nationally. I think 3 of the 5 were top 100 players, and all of them can't play. Now, 2 of them are true freshmen, Eli Holstein and
Dylan
Lonergan are true freshmen. So their development still remains to be seen. But as I wrote in the column here, like Tua Tagovailoa came into the national championship game and won it with his arm right out of the gate. I don't know how much time it takes for anybody to really see if somebody's special. And I know that these are probably natural growing pains to a certain extent when you lose a person like Bryce Young and have to move on to whoever the next person is. But Alabama's roster is coached by the greatest coach of all time and is deeper on paper when it comes to recruiting rankings, Catherine, than any other team that's ever been assembled, again, on paper. And they don't have a single player that can even make USF sweat. Like, I don't know why. Now it's a 3-pronged issue. Is it a evaluation issue? Is it a development issue? Or is it a arrogance issue because it took them so long to get into the portal this year? It's like, if you didn't know
I
what
think
you
could it be the first two? Could it be the first two, Ari, though? With the first two, and you combine evaluation, development, and coaching turnover, and it just gets hard to maintain what you've maintained. And I don't know how much the portal factors into that. Certainly, the immediate transfer seems to parallel with Alabama sliding slightly. I don't know if those two things are connected. Maybe it is. They missed on a couple guys in the portal last year. Tyler Harrell, I think he's still on the roster. He's not doing a whole lot. He seemed like he was the guy that was going to take the top off for them defensively, and they're not doing it. But to me, it seems like all of those things. You have a development issue, you have an evaluation issue, and when you have the kind of turnover that they've always had on their staff, and you add in, maybe some of these new faces, maybe that catches up to you over time. I don't think it's one thing, but I just,
all I know is that the odds of them having 5
this year,
top 100 players or 160 players at that position is staggering from a statistics standpoint. I don't know why I can't talk today. Statistically, for none of them to be able to play. At least
I think it's development. Isn't that the definition of development issues? If you've got,
but Ari, yes. But is it all that they can't play, or is it that they have receivers who can't get open and an offensive line that can't block? And if you're adding those two things together, there's a lot of quarterbacks who can't play in that situation.
I've got 3 letters for you. Are you ready to hear them?
I'm scared.
USF.
I mean, fair.
Like, I don't know what you want. Like, I'm not saying that they got to have John Elway out there, but they played a team.
Yeah.
That is physically incapable of being on the same field as them, and they couldn't get a first down. Like, I don't know where you think that is on the elemental chart of development, but that is like off.
It's not all on the
quarterback. No, I know, but I was watching it, and it my eyes were bleeding because of the quarterback.
They couldn't block. That's a communication issue, and it's a one-on-one issue.
I've got a communication issue with you right now. What's going on? What's going on here? So anyway, yeah, I know, and it's hard, but it's just like you wouldn't think that quarterback would be amongst the issues even of a team that has this many pure stars on it. So that to me is just a general, interest piece when you think about like what's going on with Nick Saban, how long does he have left, the recruiting class he just signed, the recruiting class he's assembling in 24, the quarterback that he has coming in, the 2 true freshman quarterbacks he has on the roster. Like, you and I have been in solid agreement on this, that like the over-under for Nick Saban national championships at Alabama moving forward is probably 0.5, right?
Probably.
I just don't know. Listen, too, everybody wants to come down on Alabama last year for not hitting the portal earlier or not getting a better portal guy than Buckner. But, like, what were they going to do? Get Sam Hartman, get Devin Leary, get Brennan Armstrong, Tanner Mordecai, DJU, Sam Jackson, Hudson Card, Taven Jackson, Shador. Like, I don't know that there's anybody out there other than Shador, which is not even a discussion, that really makes this team all that much better than they already are. So, I don't know.
We're not going to get explicit about it, but there's definitely a guy who wasn't in the portal that might have ended up there. So, like, and Chris Callahan says put Sam Hartman.
I agree with that, actually.
No,
maybe not a playoff, but I think they're competent.
They're maybe 10-2. If you can't block and you have receivers that don't get open, Bryce Young had a better season last year than he did when he was a Heisman Trophy winner, and they still went 10-2 and missed the playoff. And I think he's better than Sam Hartman is, certainly. Their receivers can't get open, and they run the ball average, and their offensive line can't block. Like, a bunch of quarterbacks going to look bad. And this is, I really do think it's purely a defensive or an offensive issue. The defense is not going to be like dominant, but the defense is good. It's good enough to win you a bunch of games.
Wait, so who do you like? If you're Nick Saban, what are you doing this next week?
Trolling LinkedIn for offensive line coaches and seeing if anybody's out there. I was shocked they didn't do that after last season, quite frankly. And I mean, there's nothing you can do soon, but I mean, in the off season, I think you have to sort of make it known that you're in the market.
Like, who do you start
hit it hard in
Miss?
December? Who am I starting against Ole Miss?
Yeah.
I mean, I think you have to go Milroe because you can't block, and if it breaks down, Milroe might make some throws that make you
just hoping his confidence comes back after
Cobra.
You benched him.
No, not even the confidence. Just like he can make some plays when it breaks down and make some plays with his feet and gives you that. Simpson does not give you that. Tyler Buckner definitely doesn't give you that. You need somebody to be able to make some plays in some weird spots. And I like Milroe to do that, even if he introduces maybe some errors. You need a level of edge to your offense, and he gives you that I don't think any of those other guys do.
Lester Lee here in the chat said that CSU receiver could be the number 1 receiver from Alabama, that Horton kid.
Horton?
Yeah, he could ball. He was I don't know. Sometimes, like, I don't know if we're
I don't
looking
know.
at the Travis Hunter-less secondary and it's not a high-level football game or what. But that was a fun thing to watch. But, okay, so let's take our first quick break of the day, and then we will get into the best part of the show, which is your voicemails, your voices, your thoughts, your questions, your grievances, and maybe your personal attacks. We'll see.
These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs can help you find the right people for your team faster and for free. And much like with college football, when you're hiring, the individual that you may bring on your team, you want them to have the skills and the knowledge required to help your team achieve their goals. And LinkedIn can help you do that. And also with LinkedIn, when you add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile, it will help you spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs can help you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/CFB23. Those are the letters CFB and the numbers 23. That's linkedin.com/CFB23 to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
I'm telling you, there's nothing like getting out of the shower with a smooth face, smooth dome, feeling fresh. To quote Deion Sanders, you look good, you play good. That's relevant in a number of avenues. The state of my hairline and facial hair demands frequent clean shaves, and Harry's provides them beautifully. But no matter why you shave, Harry's has you covered for the best shave of your life at a price you'll love. From their legendary, high-quality razors to skin products like exfoliating face wash and hydrating lotion, Harry's gives you a premium shave without the premium price tag. Get better quality and a better price than other razors when you get Harry's delivered right to your door. I've been using them for years, long before they were a sponsor, and they became a sponsor after I got off on a tangent about how much I love them, because it's true. The packaging is cool, the razor's substantial, a lot surer in your hand than disposable trash. That's literally trash. That's why they call it disposable. Smooth shave, smooth face, gets you ready to go about your day. And the value of the starter set is, to quote PJ Fleck, elite. It's a $13 value for just $3 at harrys.com/Saturday. That gets you a 5-blade German-engineered razor, weighted handle, foaming shave gel, and a travel cover. I use that travel cover every time I'm on the road for games on the weekends. Get your best shave ever this fall with Harry's razors and skincare products. Get a $13 starter set for just $3 at harrys.com/Saturday. That's harrys.com/Saturday for a $3 starter set.
My favorite thing about that Harry's ad is that, like, PJ Fleck is like the cornerstone on the word elite. Like, to quote PJ Fleck, elite.
He does have it in his program glossary, Ari, and he does say the word elite more than any person in the world of college football, similar to the way that Deion Sanders says believe. And now you got to understand, more than anyone else in the entirety of college football, sometimes you just get you claim ownership of a word. And if anybody else is going to try to claim ownership in college football of the word elite, other than PJ Fleck, new or old PJ Fleck, I call shenanigans.
Well, I did get a little goosebumpy. My wife calls them goosies. Looking at the schedule for next week. And of course, obviously the game that everyone's talking about right now after that crazy Colorado game is the Colorado-Oregon game. But let me remind you that we have Clemson, Florida State, which I still think is a spectacle. We have UCLA, Utah, Ole Miss, Alabama, just LSU, Arkansas, Oregon State, Washington State, and Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Iowa, Penn State. So North Carolina, Pitt, too. Just a lot of really good games. But before we focus on to next week, let's look back at what we had through the weekend and hear what you guys have to say. So what do you guys think? Why don't we get into the first voicemail here?
Let's do it.
Hi, this is Dave. I'm from Utah. I am just very confused about Florida. They don't seem to make any sense to me because I watched the Utah game and they looked like a team that couldn't do anything. And then I watched the Tennessee game and they look like a team that can, like, give Georgia some problems. Can you please help me understand the enigma of Billy Napier in Florida?
I got this one, Ari. Ultimately, I think it's easy to forget, and this is it's true in the NFL, but it's especially true in college football. College football teams do not have static values from week to week. Some vacillate more aggressively than others. Florida, I'd say, would qualify as one of those teams. But when you get a Tennessee team that I think people were definitely a little too high on, they're not one of the 10 best teams in the country. I think we could safely say that. And they played poorly on top of that. And Florida plays much better. They cleaned up a lot of the procedural stuff. They got jersey numbers right. We didn't have 2 number 3s on a special teams play. When you clean up some of the dumb stuff and then you play as well as they did on the line of scrimmage, things can look a little bit different. And shout out to Florida, who righted the ship a little bit. And like we mentioned last night, I think bought a lot of capital for Mr. Billy Napier.
I have to push back a little bit at you, Dave, here. Okay.
How so?
And we're on the same page because I'm with you on this. But we both said last week that we are on high alert for really, 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 really bad Florida. Like really bad Florida.
Like 4-8 Florida, yes.
Like complete and utter disaster Florida. Like I don't even know what word I would use other than disaster Florida that wouldn't get me fired. So let me ask you this. Has your thought process changed about this team at all, having watched them play the way they did in the Swamp, or are you still on high alert for hot seat Napier to be a discussion in 6 weeks from now?
Well, I think that those are two sort of different questions. If you go 6-6, that's not good enough at Florida. You know, there's still going to be some. You're not going to make a move at 6-6, but you're going to be grumbling going into year 3. Absolutely. I think that if you can manage the game as well as Florida did, and that's like, listen, Graham Mertz will probably end his college career without hoisting the Heisman Trophy. But if you can move the pocket, give him some easy throws, not ask him to do too much, kid him some throws without guys in his face to guys in space. You do have some athletes, then you can make some things happen on offense. We saw them do that. And then, of course, when you're running the ball as effectively as they did with Trevor Etienne, that helps as well. Granted, Tennessee was also without arguably their best linebacker and Keenan Peely, the BYU transfer. They had Aaron Beasley, but that matters too. Some of the run fits were not looking great from Tennessee, and that helped as well. But ultimately, Florida's invested. You don't have a team that is spiraling, which is a good sign coming off of that Florida loss. I mean, off that Utah loss. So I think you can probably take 4-8 off the table. They're probably not the worst team in the SEC, which we were kind of wary of, especially considering the way that Vanderbilt played at UNLV this weekend. But, I don't know that their ceiling changed, if that made any sense. Like, the idea that Florida could win more than like 7 or 8 games, I think is still kind of hard to believe.
Grace, you have any thoughts about Florida?
Yeah, I think that Billy Napier should give Trevor Etienne the ball the rest of the season. I mean, that to me was the biggest difference in the Utah game and what we saw this weekend. I think against Utah, I think Etienne had 7 carries for 25 yards. And then last night he had 23 for 169. I mean, he's just, I don't know. I'm a little bit biased because I covered Clemson and I saw Travis, but I just see so much of Trevor in Travis, and I just don't understand why it took so long to get him more involved. But I think that that's how you save Florida's offense, is you just let him work.
I personally think they should line up 5 wide and let Mertz rip it, but that's just my thought process. I don't know. I mean, you got the guy. Let him rifle the pigskin around a little bit. See what happens.
Part of this might just be that Utah is so stout in that front 7 that maybe they just didn't feel like they could, and and Tennessee is a little softer up front. I think Tennessee can rush the passer on you, but they didn't have Elijah Simmons as well. Tennessee's not as solid of a front as Utah.
I just think his contact balance is so good, and he just moves through traffic so well that I think he'll hold up with some of these big SEC defenses. I don't know. I just thought he was the most entertaining person on the field yesterday, and I didn't understand why it took us so long to see that.
He looked a lot more confident. He looked really shaky against Utah, almost like he was hurt or something, and he looked like he was running hard and confident again. He looked like a new man against Tennessee.
There's one thing that's for certain, and that is and you said this in your first initial response, Dave, is that you watch college football and we try to use transitive property, and it's like, well, this team almost
Doesn't work.
this team played like ass this week. It's like you just can't do it in this sport. And the amount of crazy calls from coaches, boneheaded decisions, turnovers. I mean, it's just like I was watching the Navy Memphis game on Friday night. Don't ask me why, but I was very much watching it.
I watched it too, Ari. It was a good game.
Yeah, did you see the grab ass at the end of that game with the fumble and then the interception and the fumble? I mean, I was in the shower and I was banging against the wall like I was the dude from Goodfellas, that Henry Hill. It's like, oh my God,
we gotta get a Truman Show situation. We gotta get a Truman Show situation on Ari when he's sweating out of bed. I feel.
Well,
like
here's the thing you should know. I've learned about my house. So it's a 2-story house, and
I'm
all the
confused
bedrooms.
about this. How you're watching this game in the shower?
Oh, my phone is waterproof. I take it in the shower and watch football every time there's a game. If why wouldn't I?
Why can't you just shower when there's not football on, Ari?
What?
I think the shower is the best place to not it's the one place that people cannot contact you on your phone and not get mad at you. The fact that you
no,
I have Bluetooth in the shower, but I don't watch football.
I'm not a listen to music guy in the shower, but I am a I watch TV in the shower. I don't know. If there's a game on that I'm watching.
So weird.
Ari just crushing some Everybody Loves Raymond.
Do you set it up? Are you holding it? What are we doing? I have
a soap thing, and I'll be listening to podcasts, or if I'm watching somebody on YouTube talk about college football or something. I have a little stand. I just put it on there, and I soap my hair and whatever. But I'm definitely taking it into the shower.
Our producer Cam just said phone in the shower is weirder than Benihana's delivery. I agree. I think that
phone in the shower. If they made it waterproof, isn't that not an invitation to bring it with you?
No, it's like an invitation to drop it on a boat,
Yeah, that's a safety precaution, not a feature, Ari.
What? I take my phone in the pool. I take my phone in the shower.
Are you taking those underwater pictures in the pool?
I legitimately treat my cell phone like it's a Submariner Rolex that can go 9,000 leagues under the sea. It doesn't even occur to me.
I just do not want to test the waterproofness of any phone. If there's water in my phone, I know these new ones are supposedly waterproof.
Take it from me. My phone gets wet every day. It's fine.
Can it go underwater?
I mean, I haven't really taken pictures underwater. I'm
I'm just saying, if you had it in your pocket and you got in the pool, because I ruined a phone like this recently. Interesting.
Yeah. Also,
I will not be
I don't understand. I just don't know what the difference is between listening on a Bluetooth speaker and setting it down on the ledge of the shower and listening to a YouTube video. Is the same thing to me.
I suppose.
But listen, I've found this out about my house. All the bedrooms are upstairs, but the master bedroom is downstairs. And I've had a issue in my life where I've woken up our child a few times from screaming about a bet. And that hasn't really gone well.
Britt loved that.
Yeah, no, my wife is
go
a
figure.
saint, but I found that the downstairs shower is in the corner of the house away from the bedrooms, and it's tiled. So you can scream and pound on the side. So in there, I was watching this Memphis game. And again, you can picture the Henry Hill scene when he's in the shower and the Lufthansa heist fin, and he goes, "Oh, we did it!" He's banging on the window. Yeah, that was me when Memphis beat Navy the other night. And at the end of that game, when they marked Navy for a first down that they were clearly a yard and a half short of, I was in the shower weeping into a loofah, and then when they finally turned it over, I was pounding on the thing. Yeah, let's go, baby. Yes, I love my wife very much, and
we really do need to get Ari a Truman Show sort of situation.
Yeah, I know. I make fun of you for being weird, but I know that I'm weird too. Okay, you guys want to go to the next thing? I don't think it's that weird to watch TV in the shower or to bring your water. You can do a poll, and then we can.
It's not that weird, but watching football in the shower, just shower after the game's over, Ari.
Have you ever had any cheddar on the game and there's the final drive is 48 seconds left? And you have to get ready for something.
What do you have? I mean, just take a shower after the game. I'm lost. Let's get to the new voicemail. My head's gonna explode.
Hi, this is George from Denton, and I was wondering, considering how non-competitive the Illinois defense was their first couple games, how concerned should I be as a Penn State fan that the offense just really struggled and just cannot get the run game going at all? Thanks. Bye.
What's that accent? Is that
You want to run it back?
Is that
We should hop in the shower. We can run it back.
Yeah. Is that rural Pennsylvania there?
Is it?
might have been.
Is that? What is? Yeah. Is that Yinzer? Is that? What is that?
I don't know. Well, I'm not an accent guy, unfortunately. They said, yeah, our podcast producer asked, where is Denton? When they said Denton, I was thinking Texas, but that guy is not from Texas, and there are no Penn State fans in Texas. So,
are you like one of those people that can identify someone's accent? Because I'm like Lloyd Christmas from Dumb and Dumber. Like somebody I'll be like, that's a lovely accent you got there in New Jersey, and it's actually Austria. Like, how can you tell where someone's from based on their accent?
I can tell a lot of it. That sounded very, very Pennsylvania, like water. That whole thing.
I thought that was Philly.
Well, it's both. Like Yinzer and Philly are not that unlike each one of one another. So we'll see. Philly's like more of like a toof talk.
We'll get my buddy Bill Landis on the show, and he'll tell you.
Yeah.
He'll tell you what it is. But here's what I'll say about Penn State. I watched the Kansas-Illinois game, and I started to feel bad. Felt bad for Illinois' defense, like they had no shot to stop them. And I know that things got a little bit, weird at times in the Penn State game, but in the past, I think Penn State has kind of gotten into these games against the lower half Big Ten West teams at times that are ugly and slosh fests or whatever. And I think, like, as a Penn State person, what I witnessed there was two types of teams on there. There was a good team and there was a team that was overmatched, and there was never any confusion of which one was which. And I think that if you go back and you look at some of the Penn State games of the past, where they're muddling around in 9 to 6 games in the fourth quarter against teams that they should be rolling, I was actually kind of encouraged by this. I know that Drew Aller was 16 for 33, and I know that he had only 200 yards passing. You'd like to see him, kind of light it up, especially considering the fact that Jalen Daniels literally abused this defense 6 days earlier or 8 days earlier. But I thought that it was a pretty good win, and I would be pleased with that.
I think for one, if you're going on the road for the first time every season, that can always be a little bit tricky. And there's no such thing as a bad road win in conference, especially when you play it and dominate the way that Penn State does. So no, my alarm bells for Penn State are like 0.4 out of 10. Grace, are you concerned about the Nittany Lions?
No, I think Audrey Snyder, our colleague, put it well. Like, beauty's kind of in the eye of the beholder on this one. Like, it was a beautifully, perfectly imperfect win. And I'm with you. You go on the road, you get a win on the road in conference the way they did. I think I would actually feel good about that. Like, you won in that type of fashion, despite it not being pretty. So I actually would kind of like that if I was a Penn State fan.
Also, they were never in peril, and they were leaning on them consistently, winning the battle at the line of scrimmage. Penn State's not going to put up 35 points in the first half. That's just not what they do.
I've been to Champaign about 12 times in my life for different sporting events. Don't think I've ever seen the sun there, and it's super windy too. I don't know if it was really windy, but it's a kind of a weird place to play. Every time I feel like I've been there, like, weird games break out there. I don't know. I think that we're going to find out a lot about Penn State this weekend, because if you're worried about Drew Aller, if you're worried about Penn State's offense not being able to move the football against Illinois, despite the fact that they scored 30 points, like, good news, buddy. We're 6 days away from them playing the best defense potentially in the Big Ten. And it's probably their last test. It is their last test until they go to Ohio State on October 21st, which is right around the corner as well. So, Penn State's supposed to be different this year. I think that they played this game in a way that they didn't come out there looking the sharpest that they possibly could look. But, if you come out in a week where everybody looked like shit, like, and win 30-13 on the road against an Illinois team that some people thought could win the West, I think you take that with a smile on your face.
To be fair, everyone thinks everyone can win the West. So, but
I like saying that, though. It makes it seem like it's a resume. Don't call me out on my shit.
Illinois, a team that a lot of people think could finish last in the West, and they only win by 17. What are we doing?
Yeah, don't. If I had a magic show, would you come and, like, lift the hood up and say, "Here's how we did it, everyone"?
I might. I feel like it'd be very entertaining just to see you be like, Nuh-uh.
Have you ever seen those people? Have you ever seen those people that do that trick with the sand where they go, hold on a second, like this, and then they pour the sand in their hand, and then they go like this, and the sand's in here, and they go like this, and it's like you don't know where it went. Have you ever seen that?
I have no idea what you're talking
Literally
about.
no.
What
Rubber
are you-
thumb.
What?
They pour it into a rubber thumb. Okay, I've seen this trick on Instagram all the time, and I never
It's
knew
like
how
your
they did
Instagram
this.
for you pages.
What is
magic
happening?
tricks.
Yeah,
I'm so confused.
my Instagram for me is just magic tricks. What, you've never seen? What, those people that have the sand?
I have no
with it
idea
in
what
one
you're
hand, and
talking
they
about,
drop
Ari.
the sand into the other hand, and then they open both
Oh my
hands, and the
gosh.
sand is gone. Okay, I'm gonna find it. I'll send it to you. You're not online enough, Dave.
Maybe I'm just not a magic guy. I don't know.
Magic. I will tell you
I
one
want to
thing.
know how many magic videos you've watched in order for Instagram to start
I watched
creating
one.
this for you.
I watched
Ari's
one.
just like, oh, you know the rubber thumb magic guy? He's like,
No,
I
I didn't say the rubber thumb magic guy. I was telling you that he used
Oh
a rubber,
my gosh.
a rubber thumb. Let me tell you something. Okay. So this David Blaine guy, I used to be afraid of when I was a kid.
That's fair.
Legitimately.
You
Do
should
you know
still
who
be
David
afraid
Blaine
of
is,
him.
Grace? Because
I
there's
No.
this thing. Dave, how old are you, Grace? Sorry, I'm not supposed to ask you
No,
how,
it's
how old you
30.
are. Okay, so this is a perfect example. Dave, you and I are roughly the same age, in the mid 30s, maybe
Yeah,
35
yeah.
or 36.
I know of
So,
him, but I don't
There
know.
is this weird cutoff. Like if you are talking to somebody who's like 32 or up, in between 32 and 40, where we all had the same exact upbringings and remember all the same references and saw all the same things when we were kids. But then if you go like 6 years, which is where Grace is, they've heard of nothing.
I've heard of David Blaine.
Like,
he
okay,
always like specials on ABC where he
but there's
like,
a certain
spend like
there's
a
a s-
month inside a block of ice, or like he always did these random
Yeah.
things. I was like, I was never really intrigued by him, but he does
Well,
also have a very creepy like vibe about him where he's
so
like,
he is a very
"Hello,
creepy
I'm
vibe,
David
and it is the guy.
Blaine."
Yeah, he was the watch. Yeah, he's that guy who does the glass bubble with the water thing. Yeah. But I saw a magic trick on 2020 or something from this guy when I was 21 years old, and I'm
This is
35
a magic
now.
podcast now.
But like it's a basketball thing too. He goes to a basketball practice and he finds a basketball player, and he tells this basketball player to write his name on a trading card. Okay.
His own
And
name?
he throws, yeah, like with a Sharpie, his
Okay.
own name on the card. They put the card back into the deck, and then he throws the cards down onto the ground or something, and the cards are all over the place, and his card disappears, and the card isn't in the deck, which would have been impressive enough because it's like, where the hell did the thing go? And then like David Blaine pointed at the basketball rack that was like, you know, like from practice where you have all the basketballs lined up on the rack, like from the 3-pointer contest. He goes, go pick the third ball up in the middle on the bottom rack. And then he brought the basketball back over and he sliced the basketball open with a knife, and the card that the guy signed was in the basketball. And like, I don't know, like obviously
Rubber
that's just
thumbs.
some editing things.
Well, yeah,
or maybe some rubber
the whole
thumbs.
back end of that trick can be planned, right?
How could you plan that?
Oh, the signing part, maybe not.
The guy wrote his name on the card.
Yeah, the signing part, maybe not.
So it's either two things: one, video editing, or two, Satanism. I don't know which one it is, but you know, I haven't been able to like.
I can't
not think
remember.
about
I
it for, like,
can't
16 years.
remember. I can't remember whose stand-up it was, but I saw a stand-up that was saying that we all need somebody in our lives that reacts to us like black people react to a magic trick, where they have to physically relocate themselves after seeing it. It was fantastic, and it was that's pretty true. I feel like there was a lot of relocating after that trick.
Yeah.
I would have relocated myself.
If you
Maybe we
never
can get
know
David
how
on the
somebody
pod.
did something,
Yeah, David Blaine, come on the pod and
Come on
tell
the
us how you
pod.
did that.
I want to
trick.
see him. I'd go see him. Rubber thumbs is always the answer. Rubber thumbs. Okay, next one.
All right.
Ari, shalom, and happy New Year, my brother. It is this is Ian in La Cañada, California, giving you my weekly call to remind you that your thoughts on the University of Washington could not have been more wrong. And yeah, you've got a Day of Atonement in 1 week, but I don't think the Cal game is going to qualify you to be fully on board. But I encourage a full reconciliation and plea for atonement next week, and then we can have you on the wagon. Love you guys. Happy New Year.
I love this guy.
Shana Tova, bud. Happy New Year, and Happy New Year to all the other Jewish people who listen to or are part of this podcast. It was a nice message. And
What
you
are
know,
we? What is the Washington take he's referring to? I feel like you were like,
we did a Pac-12 preview at the beginning of the year, and Chris was ready to put them in the playoff, and I was a little bit reluctant to meet them with that energy. And now I'm watching them offensively, and I don't think anybody in the country is going to be able to stop them. So, the thing that is interesting to me about the Pac-12 is the team that I would think would be the favorite right now, which is USC, would be kind of on an uphill battle if you look at the last 6 games of their schedule, whereas Washington has to play a lot of the same games, and they do have a pretty rough 4-game stretch to end the year. But I think their schedule is a little bit more spread out. They get Oregon in the middle of the year. It's not sandwiched in the middle of the end of the schedule. But their last 4 games of the season are at USC, home against Utah, at Oregon State, and then home against Washington State. And it's just like in the Pac-12, which team is going to be a playoff team is a very hard discussion to have in September, when I think there are 3 answers potentially to that. And the answer to the question basically is which team is going to nut up at the end of the year and get through that 4-game stretch. And it's like, it might be Washington. And I'm willing to tell you, as we turn the page to a new year and we come up on the holiest of high holidays of the Jewish religion, that I was wrong in the preseason. That said, I don't necessarily know that I'm 100% bought into the notion that, Washington's going to do it yet, because it's just such a difficult road. Easier road than USC, which gives them a leg up, but we're also not even taking into account Oregon and the big game that's happening this weekend with Colorado, and what we're going to find out about them too. So certainly is much better than I gave them credit for at the beginning of the year, no question about it. But I don't think anybody, maybe outside of David Blaine, could tell you who's going to win the Pac-12 right now. And when we get there, it's going to be a hell of a time to watch, and I think it's the perfect and most appropriate way to say farewell to our old friends on the West Coast and that unified conference.
I'd say it's fair.
Nice take, Ari. I'm all in on the Washington bandwagon. I mean, they're blowing people out. Like,
I'm tentatively in.
They're not just winning; they're winning by 30, 40. Like, I think they have the most exciting offense in the country. I don't know. I'm all in on them.
I want to see him play somebody that's got.
I just don't know how much to take from the Michigan State game, and it might be a lot.
I don't care about the Michigan State game. I'm still thinking about the Boise game.
Boise game.
Boise game is what, but Boise's good, but like they're not that good. Like, they're good, and that was really impressive. But like, I want to see you play somebody who's beat somebody. Not to they ain't played nobody yet, Paul Washington. But like, it's week 3. Very few teams have played anybody. And
the thing
I think they've got style points though, in a way that other people don't.
That's true.
Catherine B just said this in the chat, and it's true. If you have really, really good receivers, and when I say really good ones, like 3 of them, and then you have a quarterback who's putting it on the money every single time, that's just an inherently impossible thing to stop at the college level, because most people just aren't equipped with, the horses to do that. So that to me is going to be interesting. But again, it's just, are they going to have a clunker game, and is it going to happen in a 4-game stretch against ranked opponents? It's just basically going to be like, which team is built the best right now. And again, the fact that there's some buildup to it too is great. Like, I think we're going to have potentially 2 or 3 undefeated Pac-12 teams going into the end of October, and then that's when the fun really begins. So, you got you got Pac-12 after dark on Saturday night. It was a nice little warm-up of what might be happening here at the back end of the schedule.
The Pac-12 is not going to be dying on a deathbed. It is going to be full speed skydiving without a parachute down into the. They're going out hard.
I mean, are we going to get a year where the Pac-12 gets 2 teams into the playoff and the SEC gets none? I don't know.
That's the funniest possible scenario.
That would be
we
so
were talking yesterday on whether or not it would be funnier if Colorado or Texas lost. But the Pac-12 getting 2 teams in the playoff, combined with the SEC possibly getting shut out of the playoff, which is not the craziest thing in the world sitting here at week 3 would be absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
And also sad.
Nothing would be funny
Also
if Texas
hilarious.
lost.
And
and
also
I'm not
sad.
going to stand for that. Yeah. All right, guys, let's go to the next one.
Hi, this is John Skulski calling from Aranjuez, Spain. It's a little south of Madrid. It feels like this is the first season in a long time where there aren't like 2 or 3 teams which are just head and shoulders above the rest of the pack. And if that's true, is it because the transfer portal is finally starting to even out the playing field? And if that's true, do you see that trend continuing? All right, that's it. Give a shout out to all the college football fans living abroad who have to deal with time zone issues. We are the real heroes. Good night. Go Bucks.
Dude,
I want to know
would
what
you have
time
nailed his
record it is.
accent? Would you have nailed his accent, Dave?
That's a Spaniard if I've ever heard one.
Dude,
Great.
he called
Grace, where do you-
collect.
Yeah.
Yeah, wait,
Grace,
what's
we'll
that?
give you a kick on this one first. Where do you stand on the parity discussion in college football?
I think I'm with him. I mean, you just look at the number of just transfer quarterbacks alone in the last few years. And you look at it this season, Colorado being the best example of what transfers can do to your team to give you a pulse. But yeah, I think it's a situation where we're not, and we've talked about this on Stars Matter, Ari, because when we went on our Clemson rant, like it's not a situation where you've got to completely overhaul your roster with the portal unless you're Colorado. It's like 1 or 2 guys, and then you're looking at a different team. And so I think that's where that parity comes from. I think it's exciting. I think it's good for the sport. We're in week 3 and Colorado's 3-0. Like, I think that's exciting. And that's the domino effect of that is he's right. There's not 1 or 2 just dominant teams that are crushing everyone. There's not an obvious powerhouse right now, which I personally think is kind of fun.
Well, I think that it's a 2-pronged thing here. And I said this on Stars Matter, but if you don't listen to Stars Matter, I want to repeat it here. But, I've been criticized, and maybe rightfully so to a certain extent, for relying too much on the 247 team talent composite, because in my opinion, the teams with the most raw athletes out of high school on their roster give them an opportunity to be the best long-term, because it's all a math equation and it averages out. And if you sign 11 5-star prospects versus 3 5-star prospects, a team with 11 is going to be better than the team with 3, even if only 6 work out, because that's still twice as many as the other team signed. The variables all change. Some players perform below their ranking. Some players perform above their ranking. But over an 85-man roster, the overachievers and the underachievers average out, and you get exactly what you would anticipate there. But like Florida State, to me, is the perfect example of why this is changing, because they are able to go out and cherry pick overachievers off of other people's roster, like Jared Verse. I don't know what Jordan Travis was ranked, but Keon Coleman wasn't a 5-star prospect. And they got all these guys who are legitimately going to be potentially first-round draft picks who are now being calculated as 2 stars and 3 stars and 0 stars in Versus case in their composite. So their entire ranking is wrong.
Yeah.
But if you add 3 or 4 first-round picks to the field,
Ari's
that
so excited
aren't-
he's choking.
well, I'm not excited. It's like it's ruining how easy it used to be to predict things, but it's also creating more parity. But it's like, I think Florida State could win a national championship this year, and people thought that was crazy because they're number 19 in the composite ranking. Well, it's like, yeah, they're 19 in the composite ranking, but you've got 5 or 6 players who are playing like 5 stars who came into the program undervalued and no longer are who they're ranked. In a world where people were overvalued or undervalued but didn't leave their roster, that always worked out with time. Some players are better than others and some are worse than others at their rankings. But if you can take a player that is wrong ranking-wise, take him with that little claw machine that you saw in Toy Story and place him onto another roster, and that guy just starts playing. Keon Coleman's a first-round pick, and he just plays for them immediately. That completely changes the game. So, I think that it's an interesting dynamic because, and I almost wrote a column here, Seth Emerson wrote something similar, but there aren't any teams. Like last year, you could watch the Georgia team play football and be like, that's the best team in college football. And, they did have their run-in with Missouri. They almost lost to Ohio State in the playoff, but by and large, they took care of business from beginning to end, and they won the national championship. The best team won. There's no doubt about it. And a lot of these last 3 or 4 or 5 years, you had a lot of teams that were built that way that were so abundantly clear in a different class of their own. The Ohio States, the Georgias, the Clemsons, when they were hitting, were so much more. You could look at them and know. And I think that it's possible that era is changing because those teams too are losing a lot of their depth because people want to play more and they're transferring out. So yes, I do think that the portal is changing things. I also think that it might not take as many players hitting. Like, how many players do you think, Dave? I'm going to ask you this. I've been talking a while. But, like, if you hit on 3 players that are playing like 5 stars but were ranked as 2 stars, I think that's enough to change the entire dynamic of what your team is capable of. Like, how many players
depending on the position that they play, yeah.
1 defensive end, 1 running back, and 1 quarterback. That's what happened with Florida State.
I think you need a receiver.
They went from
maybe running back.
Florida State got a receiver.
What did I say?
A quarterback, and a
defensive
receiver,
end.
and a defense. If you give me a quarterback, receiver, and defensive end, then I would say yes.
Yes.
Is that not the blueprint?
Well, blueprint's a strong word.
I'd take an offensive lineman too.
No, 1 offensive lineman is not going to do it for you. If you have a huge
addition to those 3, I would want 1.
If you had just a complete like an NFL first-round tackle that walks in, then maybe. But like if you added Peter Skoronski to, I don't know, whatever. I mean, he was on a 1-11 team last year, so like 1 offensive lineman, I'm not sold on. Here's where I sit on this. I don't know that I necessarily buy that it influences parity that much. I think we're just in a weird year where the best programs are rebooting quarterbacks. But I think what you are going to have here is we're still settling out who can manage the portal, and I mean that by not really who can go get in the portal, but who can you keep? Culture and cash. Okay, you need to have money so that
that's
guys
your new record coming out, right?
Yes, culture and cash. You cannot have people coming and buying your players. Wherever you've got to have them well funded at your school. And you have to have a roster that wakes up every morning and says, man, I can't wait to get to the facility. Some places operate like that, some do not. And I think the places where you have a deficiency on either one of those things, in either culture or cash, you're going to have problems retaining talent. So it's not even just evaluation and going and getting guys. It's being able to keep and maintain the guys that you signed out of high school. And like I said, you do that with culture and cash. And if you don't have either one of those things, you're going to have a leaky bucket and your talent is going to come dripping out the bottom.
Yeah, Matt McCarty just said here in the chat that Josh Pate's dead horse about only teams can win it every year with the expanded playoff is pointless, is full of it. And like, I think Josh Pate took a column that I wrote for The Athletic and like made a whole segment out of it and agreed with it. So like I am on the ssame page with Josh Pate about the expansion of the playoff.
Most years I'd agree with you. This year, no.
This year might be the one year where the 12-teamer would be good because we don't know who it is.
The 12 seed could compete.
The 12, well, I mean, now you're getting a little weird, but I think that in most years there's only 2 or 3 teams that actually could win the national championship. I say 6 to be more friendly about it, but it's actually usually 3. This year, you have Michigan, you have Ohio State, you have Florida State, you have LSU, who's still alive, right? The list is too long. Alabama technically could still win the national championship this year if they don't lose again. But I don't know in most years if this is a trend and this is the way that the sport is going to feel every year, in 5 years, or if this is a weird year where all the teams are just turning over rosters at the same time. But
I think it's just
that
a weird
said,
year.
But Dave, those programs also, I mean, Alabama doesn't have to turn their roster over. Georgia doesn't usually have to turn their roster over. Ohio State.
That's what I'm saying. I think this is a weird year. It's not about turning your roster over, but if you have a gap at quarterback and you go from, Stetson Bennett, for whatever, I don't really want to have a Stetson Bennett conversation, but he was way above average. Okay. He was very good at what he did and he made them better and he made a ton of plays. Carson Beck, it remains to be seen whether or not he can make plays. We know Alabama doesn't have a playmaker anymore at quarterback for at least.
When's the last time Alabama had an average player? Blake Sims?
An average player at quarterback?
Yeah, sorry, average quarterback.
Yeah, probably Blake.
When was the last time Ohio State had an average quarterback? 2004?
Yeah.
Like,
well,
it's not like
been a while.
it's not like this is a thing where it's like, oh, a quarterback left, the team blows. Like, that's not how it works at these places. They recruit so well that no matter what happens to them, they are immune to being bad. That's the whole point of the composite ranking, and that's why it's different. So if we're going to be in a world now where Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, and Clemson are all going to be in rebuilding years when those didn't exist 3 years ago, then yes, the sport is different now.
Well, is it a question of you when you lose your depth on the lines, specifically the offensive line, then it makes all your skill position players more susceptible to looking not
Again,
like
those teams
gods?
they never lost their depth.
What do you mean?
Alabama's average player ranking on their team is a top 100 player. How do they not have depth to replace what happened last year? Like, that's the number
I'd
one
have to
thing.
go.
Like,
I mean, they lost some dudes out of the portal. Bama lost some guys. I'd have to go look at exactly who, but they lost some guys. I'd like to know how many of their of their 8 guys.
But the portal's the point.
How many
That used to
combined
not
years
happen
they-
before. When players felt trapped or were dissuaded from leaving because they had to sit out a year,
Yeah.
it kept that depth in check. It kept it there. But now that
Yes.
people can leave with impunity and play immediately the next year, then there's no reason to not bolt, and that's what hurts the depth. So if that's what's
what I'm
changing
saying.
things,
That might be.
then
That might be.
then maybe the super team is dead. But
Maybe.
we've been on a 10-year run of super team, and
The
it's
thing
hard
that is
to have a
weird, though,
12-team
Laurie,
playoff and
is
super
on
team
paper. On paper, Georgia and Alabama are still super teams.
I know.
And then you watch them on Saturday, and you go, "These guys can get got." Like
the paper is fraud. That's what I'm saying. The paper is fraud.
Yeah.
When a 3-star player who usually is just on a team playing like a 5-star prospect and blending in the way that Jordan Davis did with Georgia.
Yeah.
When you put Jordan Davis on USC, all of a sudden they've got this monster out there. It doesn't show up on the numbers. That's the thing. So we're starting to have to consider whether or not the numbers are flawed. They weren't flawed 3 years ago because what was on your roster was on your roster. Now there's so
Jordan
many
Davis is
moving
a bad
parts.
example because he didn't move up, but like the guys you're talking about, the guys that have moved up to maybe not the elite schools, but the very good school. Like the Keon Coleman is probably a good example. But I don't know what his recruiting.
No, I'm just
was.
talking about 3-star players who go top 5 in the NFL draft. And like if you're able to move them from roster to roster,
Yeah.
then that automatically changes the numbers and completely makes it's not the same thing anymore.
Maybe.
So that to me is the thing. It's like, are we going to have football seasons in the future where the top 3 teams in the country literally could not get beaten in any imagination? In the deepest, darkest bowels of your brain, you couldn't come up with a scenario where they could lose. Like last year's Georgia team versus TCU, or is it going to be 12-team playoff in 2034 and any of these 8 out of the 12 teams are going to be able to win this thing? Like that's the
I like the
thing.
second scenario a lot better.
Yeah,
Well, college
I was gonna
football's
say, I
never had
hope.
this. The college football has never had the second scenario. So if we think that it's going to happen, then that means that we're in for a fundamental shift with this portal that's going into a direction that is even more far out there than it is right now.
Yeah, might be right. Written questions? I'll do this one, Ari. If Alabama ends up going 9-3 this year, like many have predicted, how egregious is this mismanagement of talent? 24/7 talent composite would show the last 2 years the most talented ever. Yet there are questions at virtually every position. Is it poor evaluation, development, or both? I mean, we've kind of hit on this. It's
the second week in a row where we answered a question before reading it. So
yeah, yeah. Do we have anything more to add on this? Like Bama, it's not one thing; it's a confluence of like.
I think it is. Yes. It's like coaching turnover, transfer portal, injuries, draft, all of it in one.
I mean, a lot of these guys that you have on your roster were evaluated 2 coaches ago at Alabama. That's weird.
Well, I wanted to ask Grace this because she's, I lose my mind when I'm talking about Dabo Sweeney sometimes, and Grace has actually spent a lot of time around him. But is there something about the sturdiness of Clemson's program? I know that we've kind of criticized him, or I have. I don't know if you have. I have criticized him for his lack of participation in bringing players in. But is there something on the reverse end that makes Clemson a sturdier program in the new frontier of college football if they aren't engaging in it as much as other programs do?
Like, if there's something that Clemson has that helps them
Like,
stick around?
less players leave. Yeah, like, or will they be more will they resemble an old roster of players who, coming and going less frequently because they had to sit out a year, or are they going to join the fray, you think?
I don't know. I think what made Clemson so good and unique during their run was that they knocked it out of the park on the evaluation. Like, yes, they got Trevor Lawrence. Yes, they got these big time 5 stars, but they also took Isaiah Simmons as a 3-star. Michigan wanted him as a wide receiver and turned him into the best defender in the country. Hunter Renfrow. Like, I think Clemson's, I don't know that their evaluation is as good now, I will say. Like, I think it's dropped off a little bit, but yeah. And then I think, to your point, there's something to be said about Dabo is so protective of his culture, and that's his baby, right? That, I don't know. We'd have to look at the numbers, but I think he would at least like to think that he's got fewer guys out the door.
Did the slide help with keeping him?
The slide is deceptively fast, honestly. I wrote it once, and it's like a little boop at the end. Like, it's pretty fast.
Well, guys, it's not a college football conversation if Deion Sanders doesn't come up.
I'm honestly surprised it hasn't. This hasn't.
We have one last question. Ari, can you give it to us?
Where do you think Coach Prime will be in 5 years? Ursula D via the Athletic.
First off, Ursula on the short list of most terrifying movie villains of all time. Before we move forward, my wife was roasting.
Is that a Disney movie?
Yes, that's the octopus lady from Little
Did you watch that
Mermaid.
as an adult, or did you watch that with your kids?
No, I watched it as a kid, and I don't watch it anymore because it scared me, and my wife roasts me because I have not seen the live action film. I have very little interest in that, but I know the old one.
What movie is it?
Little Mermaid.
Oh, I haven't
She's
seen
terrifying.
That since I was 4. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I saw it about when I was 4, and I don't think I've watched it since because
I didn't know if you were a Disney adult. I was just gonna start digging.
Yeah.
I am not a Disney
We
adult.
did not go down a Disney rant again.
Okay, so with Deion, it's a really fascinating conversation because I think he wouldn't even know the answer to that question. Because I think he has to figure out, what do I want? And that is a complicated question. I've spent like 9 months in the Deion world, right? And I think his motivation right now, I think a lot of it is, I want to coach my kids and I want to give them opportunities at big time places. And right now, having Shiloh and Shador and him at a Power 5, wrecking shop and changing the entire game in college football and establishing this cultural relevance, becoming Black America's favorite college football team. Like, this is like what he would have dreamed of. Like, it's unbelievable what they're experiencing right now. So, you're obviously going to be at Colorado for a little bit. The short answer to this question that I would feel confident is not at Colorado. But the real answer is very complicated because when Shiloh runs out of eligibility and Shador runs out of eligibility or leaves the NFL or whatever, he's got to figure out, what do I want to be? If a big place calls you, do you want to be that guy? Do you want to go dip your toe into the SEC and fight in that little viper pit and try to win? I think he definitely wanted the Florida State job, and that's still, I think, his holy grail in a lot of ways. But a bigger job, I don't know that he'd want to do that. And there's part of it that, his health will be a part of it. But I do believe him when he has been – Deion, he doesn't straight up lie very often. And he's been very public about, I don't want to coach in the NFL. So I don't think the NFL, it would be that much of a scenario. Maybe if if Shador went to the right team and that team really wanted him, I could see him talking himself into it, maybe in that sense. But I really don't think the NFL and his way of operating, I don't know that that's something he'd want to do. But I think if a big place called him in 2 or 3 years, he'd have to consider it. But it'd have to be the right spot and a place that's going to let him be him. And there's not a lot of those places out there.
It almost feels like to me that Colorado is the perfect place for him because Colorado just lets him do what he's going to do.
That's a huge part of it. The autonomy is like the autonomy is the thing. Like, he did a lot of things that caught a lot of criticism all offseason. And his AD, Rick George, and his president, Phil DiStefano, basically said, hey, We're letting him do what he's going to do. He had a plan. He was very upfront with them about what he was going to do, and he's doing what he's doing. And there are a lot of schools where the AD and the president would not let that happen. And he wanted to go to a place where he had autonomy. They were going to let him do whatever he wanted to do because they were desperate. They were. And they're reaping insane benefits. The Rock was at their game. Lil Wayne led their team out onto the sideline. Freaking Kawhi Leonard is on the sideline. Like, this stuff doesn't really
Master
happen.
P.
Yeah, Master P. Like, it's
Have you heard of
insane.
Master P, Grace?
Yes.
All right, Grace.
I'm testing my theory of if you're 30 or under, you are like a different generation than if you're 35. Like
Yeah.
there's
How old are you?
that hard cut. I'm 35.
Oh, I thought
Yeah.
you were. I thought you were younger than that.
She thought you were 43. Ari.
No, I'm old. No, I.
Deion is not going to go somewhere that is not going to give him the autonomy to do things his way and be himself. And there are not a lot of places like that.
Unless Colorado is the proof of concept, the future athletic director who hires him that says, we're not going to meddle with him. He knows
They
what
got to
he's
be
doing.
desperate, though, Ari. They have to be desperate.
That's what
I know
I'm
how these
curious
athletic
about. Is
directors
like,
think.
what is like, and maybe this is not an answerable question, but like, what is the other school that allows this? Like, who else other than Colorado is that desperate and that willing to let him do his thing?
I don't know if there's a school that's better than Colorado.
Like,
would
does
be.
does it exist?
Like, I mean,
a
you'd
good
probably be like
question.
Illinois, Purdue, or teams like that.
And is
that
it a
are gonna
better
be, like-
job than Colorado?
That's what I'm saying. Like, is it going to
Like-
be like a tradition? Like, would Auburn have ever been desperate enough to allow it to happen?
Auburn
what
was
a job-
never going to do the Deion thing.
Yeah,
no.
that's what I'm saying.
That'd
So,
be
like,
hilarious, but no.
What
yes.
blue blood program could ever be desperate enough to hire Deion and deal with the actions?
I mean, I think it would depend on where your program is. There's some people in the
Arkansas?
chat.
Catherine keeps saying Arkansas.
As someone who lived in Arkansas, I can tell you, no, Arkansas is not
That's
doing
the thing. Like he's. I mean, I'm not saying Colorado is a destination job by any stretch of the imagination, but he's changed the way we look at this job now. So, like, what is the upgrade in college football that also allows him to?
My whole thing too with Deion is that if he ever got to go to a place, and I thought this before he got to Colorado, if he ever got to go to a place that let him do it his way and let him be himself, and he experienced success there, then what would you be leaving for anyway? Like, would you be leaving for more money?
money, and not
'Cause,
money
like-
for himself, but money to run his program and resources. Colorado
Yeah.
does not have a place that you can hire 30 support staffers and do all the things that a lot of these places in the SEC are doing. They are pretty limited in what they can do. I don't know what their recruiting budget looks like, but I can say it's probably safely not what a lot of these top schools in the
Yeah.
SEC are rolling with. So all of those things, and you do have a ceiling at Colorado that has nothing to do with your access to talent or your conference affiliation or whatever. College football is one of the few sports where an influx of cash and going to or resulting in wins is like a 1-to-1 A to B, especially in the NIL era proposition. They don't have this collective with $10 million on hand. And if Deion was at somewhere that did, good luck.
We
man.
also
Like,
too we've spoken a lot about how like Shador and Travis Hunter are proof of concept for the players. But you know what I'm on high alert for too? Like if Sean Lewis is a Big Ten coach next year,
which
there's
might
going to be some proof of concept of go play for Deion. Everyone's watching. It's a really good place to get a better job, which then would attract high-level assistants, which then makes your program better. And then you're more.
I think it already has.
Yeah.
I think it already has
Yeah.
attracted. He's got a
Well, I
good
mean,
balance of guys that he's been
But
with.
I'm saying
and
if you're able to
and
lose
new
Sean
ideas.
Lewis, because I think Sean Lewis will probably go get another job somewhere.
I'll be
eventually.
shocked
Like,
if Sean Lewis is there next year and he's not a head coach.
Yeah, like he
somewhere
should be
yet.
a head coach somewhere next year. And like
Well, he
for
was a
him,
head
like
coach
it's a
somewhere
brilliant.
last year's.
Yeah. But a
Yeah.
head coach at the Power 5 level now is what we're saying. Like it was a brilliant move
Yeah.
for him to leave Kent State willingly, go be the offensive coordinator and do it this way, knowing that everybody would be watching. Drum up the perfect play calls on a 98-yard touchdown run as time expired last year, become the sexy candidate, and then go run a Big Ten West team that wants to play like that. It's like he probably is a faster track to becoming a Power 5 head coach now than if he never would have left being a head coach somewhere else. So,
well, that's the genius of what he did, because I think he, our colleague Bruce Sullivan wrote about it, and I'd kind of heard some rumors about it, but he, I think he was frustrated getting passed up for the Cincinnati job, and I think he thought, which I don't know that I would have thought the same thing, because Alabama and Georgia and these places are always kind of the shortcut, but the idea that I'm going to leave being a head coach and go work for Deion at Colorado, where they just went 1-11, and we're going to flip this roster, and that's going to be a faster road to becoming a big-time head coach and getting out of Kent State than it would be to just stick it out at Kent State. That's pretty wild. But I think some of these G5 coaches, too, recognize in the portal era that sustaining success at any G5 program is harder than ever, because Penn State's going to come get Dante Cephas, right? And all these guys are constantly fielding calls. If you have a 1,500-yard season at a G5, you're going to get 10 calls that offseason, whether you're in the portal or not.
all right, guys. Well, it's been an hour and 10 minutes. It's been a lot of talking on the podcast stream this weekend, and Daddy's going to go hibernate tonight, I think. I'm going to go watch this NFL game, and
Grace, you come back for a 3 a.m. stream. We're going to start that daily tradition.
Gonna wait till after the Dolphins Patriots game, if we'll see if we can get kooky.
What time
gonna
did you guys go to sleep last night?
I went to bed at
3:30
3:30 Eastern. Yeah. We're gonna come back after the Dolphins Patriots and talk about what this means for the portal.
Yes. All right, guys. Well, thanks again for tuning in to Until Saturday, Sunday Sound Off Edition. Please be sure to continue to call in and leave your voicemails. We've got a lot to sift through. The more, the better. We want the best ones to make the show. I just wanted to make sure you guys knew that on Tuesday, Max and Sam are going to be on with our Notre Dame writer, Pete Sampson. Notre Dame has a huge game this upcoming weekend with Ohio State. I am here to inform you happily that I'm going to be there, and I cannot wait. It's going to be my first Notre Dame experience. It's a bucket list stadium for me, so certainly can't wait to
I'm also
get out
checking
there.
off a bucket list stadium this weekend. I've never been to Autzen. I'm very excited.
It's
Grace,
really loud.
Are you going anywhere this weekend?
I am. I have Clemson, Florida State.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Is that in Tallahassee or Clemson?
It's in Clemson.
Oh, have you ever
Is that
been
a bucket
there?
list stadium?
Have you ever been there before?
Well, I just was informed, and Dave, we're going to have to talk about this after the show, but apparently Notre Dame's doing this thing where their press box is closed 1 hour after the head coach leaves the podium. And I don't know how people do work that way. So it's going to impact our Saturday night podcast, but we'll talk about that later in the week when we'll
figure it out.
Get closer to it. Obviously, we want you to hit subscribe wherever you're listening to this. If it's podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, all those things, YouTube, thumbs up, leave comments, leave reviews, anything that you can do to help this podcast, both video and audio, grow. It's greatly appreciated. And if you leave a 5-star review in the comments, we will be sure to get to it on the show. Thank you guys so much for your continued support of Sunday Sound Off. We will continue to do this every Sunday. The phone number for your voicemails and your texts is 316-462-9852. Again, that's 316-462-9852. We really, 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 really appreciate it. We want your voices on the show. We will continue to do them. It don't have to be questions. These were questions today, but you can leave.
We were light on the coaching impressions.
Yeah, impressions, discussions, insults, anything that's funny. Like it doesn't have to be like, so what do you think of Washington's playoff hopes? It's like, well, the truth is that we don't know any more than you do. It's just we're doing our best to use our expertise to try to prognosticate what's going to happen. But this is a crazy sport, and no one really knows what's going to happen.
I'm looking forward to door dashing Casa Bonita on my next trip out to Colorado.
Yeah, I don't know what you're. Yeah. Be sure to subscribe to the Until Saturday newsletter as well. It's everyday college football coverage to your mail inbox, your email inbox, and you can find the link to that in the show's description as well. So thanks for listening to this little spiel at the end. I appreciate you guys, both Grace and Dave. Always awesome to be with you, and to the audience that was here live. Thank you so much. We will catch you guys on Monday, Tuesday, and the rest of the week. For all three of us, thank you again. That was Until Saturday.
Bring back